Paranormal perspectives. Paranormal perspectives. Exploring the paranormal perspective.
You're supposed to say the ones.
Oh, is it? I gotta say that.
Yes.
Public service announcement. The views and opinions are the opinions.
Fuck that bullshit. They are my opinions and my guests, no one else's. Remember, this show ain't for chitlins' ears, so listening discretion and viewing discretion is advised. This is a paranormal horror crime show, so the scenes and the sounds can be a little terrifying to those little ears and those little eyeballs. And of course, there's obviously cussing. I mean, it's me. Also, please don't do anything that these stupid ass people do in this video or this podcast. This is for entertainment purposes and for you guys to listen with your ears, consume the knowledge. And now, time for the show.
Exploring the paranormal perspective.
Like books.
Think. Yes. What's up, everybody? It's Shauna with Exploring the Paranormal Perspective, founder of Geeks Paranormal, or you can just call me Geeks. Most everybody does. I have a wonderful guest with me tonight. It is Debbie Ziegelmeyer. I've been wanting her on my show for the past, 3 years. I think I've been trying to get you on.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the first year I was pre-recording, and I met you the second year at Arkansas Paranormal Expo.
Okay.
And then I lost your card and I couldn't figure out how to get a hold of you. And then this past year I was going to get you on, and I just got overwhelmed and overcrowded with a whole bunch of stuff that I was doing, so I couldn't get you on. And I finally now got you on.
Oh, you could have gone to MUFON.com and looked up. I'm state director of Missouri. My email
Yes.
is right there.
I saw that. And that's how, well, aside from seeing you on Amok, I saw you on Amok. I was like, okay, I got to get you on mine. And that was it. That was the way I got you. But welcome today. And I want to thank you so much for coming on, especially with all the knowledge that you have. And I've kind of got like a UFO thing going on because I got you on this week and then I got Nancy Thames on next week. And I'm really looking forward to hearing everybody's perspective on UFOs and what's going on. But could you share a little bit about what initially drew you to join MUFON and become a field investigator?
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you for having me on.
Of
Finally.
course, finally.
What started me? Oh, goodness. Well, I grew up in Arizona at the foot of the Graham Mountain, all the way from first grade through freshman year high school. And I always had a telescope. The sky was just brilliant. I ended up in California for a year, then ended up in Missouri, and graduated from school here. But I'm in a place where, well, in 1973 was our Missouri UFO flap. And I can remember the lake. We go to Clearwater Lake, and there was talk in the town of flying saucers coming in and out of the lake. And then just in 2023, they designated Piedmont, Missouri, which is right outside Clearwater Lake, the UFO capital of the state of Missouri. So that's how
Nice.
much activity is going on. But how did I get involved in MUFON was well, in 2000, they had a conference here, and my husband was bass fishing, and he said, well, I let him go off and do his thing. And I looked through the newspaper. I thought, well, what am I going to do? Well, I've been going to meetings, the MUFON meetings for a couple years that I had found that another time he went bass fishing. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go to the conference. And it was just incredible. The people now that at that conference were all the big names. It was Bud Hopkins, Bruce Maccabee, Stanton Friedman, all the people that were the legends, and I got to see them all, and I thought, oh, these people are really smart. There's a nuclear scientist or nuclear physicist, and I
Oh
mean,
my God.
so, I thought, well, I'm going to join, and then it was right around the time of X-Files. And so they said,
Oh, yes.
why are you joining? And I said, well, I want to know the truth. Well, now I'm almost sorry I asked because there's so much going on. I immediately became a field investigator because, of course, I wanted to be, to get Scully and Mueller. So
Yeah.
I thought this is really cool. And
Oh,
my brother and I were investigators all over the country doing that. But
oh, nice.
I ended up state director of Missouri in 2009. I missed a meeting and no one else wanted it, and I got appointed. So I got kind
So
of
you just got thrown into it.
yeah. It was like, well, no one else, showed up, and we need you to do this. And I said 3 months. Well, that was 2009.
Oh,
So
3 months lasted a long
yeah,
time. This is the
yeah.
longest 3 months.
Doggy years or something. I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but
Well, with that
and
much,
that's
go ahead. Go ahead.
no, that's kind of how I got involved. I mean, there is so much going on in this state. And then the water thing, it was actually, I became a field investigator in 2001. At the same time, I became a scuba diver. And
Oh, so
so
that's how you got a part of the MUFON functional director. Yeah, the
right,
MUFON functional director.
right. And it was just, I'm looking underwater and then looking above and looking down and thinking, wow, what a great place to hide. And so, of course, my focus all went towards water. And by 2007, I was an instructor. And in 2003, actually, I taught the first underwater UFO search and recovery course. And it
Oh,
was great
wow.
because all the people that I trained with were area firefighters. And so
Oh,
this was great. And I've got them signed up, our area firefighters, if mostly the ones in St. Louis City where my son-in-law is, who yeah, my partner later became, that's a whole other story, became my son-in-law. But my daughter and my son-in-law are firefighters, different fire departments.
oh, wow. Interesting. So did you have
Well, they,
is it called Patty?
oh yes, I'm a PADI instructor.
Well, I don't
And
know. Were
so
you a Patty instructor before you became?
well, no, Roger and I went when I became I started training. I took my open water first, and then I
Okay.
started taking my next course, my advanced, and Roger and I got paired up as we were buddies, paired up in the
Oh, Oh.
Everybody pairs up, and we went to the same advanced class, and he was a firefighter wanting to take over water rescue, and
Oh,
ended up
nice.
doing that. He's a swift water instructor, water rescue for city of St. Louis. But way back then, he was this young man that decided that's what he wanted to do. And I said, well, I'm over here. I want to learn to dive better so I can look for UFOs. And they thought it was a hoot. And before I knew it, I had the fire department, and we all designed a class to hunt for UFOs. We had aliens hidden underwater, and it was a lot. It was really a lot of fun.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
So we, and that kind of focused. And then when I gathered information for 20 years, and then when COVID hit and everybody was kind of locked up, I thought, and they were telling everybody, oh yeah, if you're, 50 or older, you've got a 50-50 shot of not going to make it through this thing. And I thought, I got 20 years of information. That's when I wrote my book, The Alien
Ah,
Colonization of Earth's Waterways, because you've got a copy.
I do. I do.
It was my first book, and I thought, I had so much information, and I thought someone else can carry on where I left off, but it was a shame to waste 20 years gathering information on water and then just, have me die or something, everybody throw it in the trash. And so I thought I
Right.
needed to be in one place. And it was supposed to be just a little book, and there was so much information. I thought,
My God,
you
I
know,
know.
you really need to see the volume of it. I have one whole chapter that's nothing but sightings, GPS, they're maritime in the
Mm,
oceans that are merchant ships, they're military ships, fishing trawls, and there's like 300 of them. I could have put three or four. You put all 300 and you're thinking, that's a lot.
it is a lot.
It shows the magnitude of it. And the thing about that is too that a few of them do actually say UFOs. Some of them would just say, well, we think it was a satellite, we think it was this or that. These
Mm,
people are out there for 3 months in the water.
yeah.
They're night observing. They know what's out there.
They
And
know what
if
the difference is between a satellite and a UFO.
Oh, absolutely. And if they're going to go on ahead and report this to their commander and
Mm,
take a chance of being made fun of seeing something they cannot identify, they cannot identify it. And
yeah.
that's what I think was kind of important.
It is important. Now, with your underwater research and stuff, what kind of unique challenges did you face when investigating UFO sightings? And what is it related kind of to the body of water?
Oh, water is tough because um our we a lot of it's hid down in trenches, and our
Mm,
deepest trench is Mariana Trench, and
oh
that's
yeah.
7 miles deep. Our average trench, a trench is the space between two tectonic plates, so if
Mm,
there's an earthquake and your tectonic plates move, it's the spaces in between. Average is about 2.5 miles, and everything is so deep. Even as an instructor, I'm limited to 130 feet. And then there's things that are way down farther. If you're going to hide, you're going to hide down farther than
right.
that. And then, as we saw, that was the a Titan, what, a year or so ago, that went down to
Oh
see
yeah.
the little sub went down two and a half
Hmm.
miles to the Titanic and imploded.
Imploded.
And
Hmm.
it doesn't explode. There's so much pressure, it just goes in.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's I mean, everything just crushes in. And um we're so limited. Even our submarines, you can watch the old World War II movies and see the
Hmm.
submarines trying to hide, and there's a guy that he'll tie a string between the two, and all of a sudden the string is dipping in because the whole
Yeah.
submarine is compressing in.
That
So
is so scary.
well, that's why it's a very good place to hide. And I
Mm,
mean, I've got reports where several reports of 10-foot tall alien beings being seen underwater. They're just hanging out there.
holy
There's
cow.
a lot of information about bases. And the one that I saw in the water, I actually had a water sighting. It was
Really?
January 25th, 2006. I was on my second of 10 cruises on the Explorer of the Seas, Royal Caribbean. I went diving all day at St. Martin, and then we got back to the ship about 4:30. I'm waiting for everybody else to come back on. So I showered, wet, got all put all my wet gear away and showered. As the ship, everybody else is getting on, the ship is leaving, everybody's getting ready for dinner, and they're all getting dressed up. They're, showering for dinner and putting away all their souvenirs. And I'm out there with my camera taking pictures as we're leaving shore. So I mean, there was nobody else out there because, They'd already been. I hadn't seen the island. I was diving. They take you right off the ship. Yeah, they come over and take you right, right off the pier, and you just go diving and come right back, and you don't get to see anything. And it was only my second.
Aw.
So as we're leaving, we're about 20 miles from St. Martin to head to St. Thomas, and the picture's in the book. I looked over to, like I said, be starboard side I'm walking toward the bow, the front of the ship on the right hand side. There's the size of a car, two cars, like they were like this, and they were get this way. They were doing this, and they were moving like that, just above the water, orange, saucer shape.
Huh.
And my first reaction was I turned around and I thought, what's reflecting on the water from the ship? And I turned back around and we were leaving them behind. And so I ran with my camera and I got one good shot. And then I was under lifeboats and plexiglass, but one clear shot through open space, not behind any plexiglass of these two. And I'm showing on my camera, and the people, the only ones out there were people putting away chairs and they're picking up towels and all that type of thing. And I said, well, can I talk to the captain? Did he see anything? And well, they wouldn't let me talk to the captain. Well, I did even notice. I mean, I even asked him, I said, could it be some kind of do you have a remote controlled toys you put out there? And they said, it's against the law to throw anything off the ship, work anything off the ship. They can put things over the water. They have now they have slides and stuff that go across the ship, but it's got to be connected to the ship.
Oh.
I started looking at my pictures when I got home, and every picture from that moment on it started 11 days later, and the time was 6 or 8 hours or something. It affected the time and the date.
Wow.
It went from January 25th to February, I believe it was February 5th, was my pictures from that date on. And I'm looking at the pictures later on in the cruise, and it's already a date past, and I'm already home, and I'm home like February 2nd, and the pictures are ahead. I thought, what happened to my camera? So,
Wow.
and then I didn't notice till later, there's a third one. It's in the sky and it's covered by kind of like fog. And so I don't know if they're in the sky covered by fog and then it clears out and then they go and enter the water, or
Kind of
if it
like a
was the other way
cloaking?
around. Yeah, it looked like it. Yeah, if there's
Huh.
maybe the picture, you probably couldn't see it, but I think the picture is in the book it's in page I don't know, like 103, I believe. But it's there's one up at the top in the sky that's just fogged out. And I didn't even see that one. I was looking at the other two, and the ship was moving so fast. I was running.
Like that one.
Yeah. And there's one way up on the right hand corner, left hand, if you're looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Head corner. You can see it
Oh,
way up at the top.
yes.
And I didn't even see that one. I'm assuming that they were up there fogged and then they were coming down the water. And then I don't know why they were hovering, why they just didn't go into the water.
Huh.
But
Maybe they
I
wanted to
don't,
be seen, or maybe they just thought I don't know. That's crazy.
and here I'm diving all day long. And then I
Mhm.
wake up 20 minutes out to the ocean and then I see something. I was in the right place both times. So I guess I could say I was in the right place at the right time because they weren't underwater. They were up in the
Right?
sky while I was underwater. And then once I'm out, then they go into the water. But it was so deep out there. We're 20 minutes out. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I imagine it was probably several thousand, at least 1,000 feet deep out there.
Holy cow. That's deep.
So I've had some sightings. I've picked up a lot of things that I'm not really sure about, that's over water, over our rivers here in Missouri, that we're working on things.
Now, you being a pilot scuba instructor, has that influenced your approach to the underwater research and the UFO investigations?
Well, it does, because it surprises me. I had someone else who decided they were going to investigate that anomaly right off of Malibu on the coast of California.
Mhm.
And this person went out there and they said, well, okay, there was nothing there. We were on the boat. We all got seasick. And I said, well, did you try and go underwater and see what this was? Did you take some kind, of an underwater craft of some time, a little mini sub, or I guess what's that, a UAV, that
Mm.
underwater vehicle? And they said, well, we had one. And I said, you should try and go in. There were pillars. And they said, well, no, we figured there wouldn't be anything in there. But they were able to take a piece off of one of because it looked like it had pillars, and they took a scraping with a mechanical arm or something that was on this little vehicle and said it was coral. I said, of course it's coral. We had a condo in the Florida Keys for 13 years, and about 2 weeks after our boat sat in the water, we'd have to clean the bottom because you've got all this, oh God, sludge and everything else that builds up on there. Absolutely. Have you ever seen anybody that's gone treasure hunting and they've got just everything just builds up around? You don't have to be in the water very long. I mean, this looked like it could have been there for 1,000 years. We don't know. But of
Oh.
course, you're scraping off coral. I thought, oh, God. And they said, then we tried to look from on top, but we couldn't see down in the water. Well, no, it was about 1,700 feet down. Um, I I have a good example. In a presentation that I do that I'm in Cozumel, and right off where the ships dock, there's a couple different places, one in San Miguel, but there's another place farther down the shoreline. And where I know the Royal Caribbean ships, where they dock, um, you can swim from the shore right out in the water, not too far from the ship. You can stand on the top of the ship and you can see a dive buoy and you can see bubbles, but you can't look down and see. There's a plane down there that crashed. They crashed it on purpose for a movie in the 1970s. It's only 22 feet deep. People go right off the shore and just swim around it. And I mean, it's only 22 feet deep and the water's crystal clear. When I've dove in Cozumel, I can look up at 75 feet and see the water moving back and forth from underwater, looking up,
Wow.
seeing it. It's very, very clear. But if you're on the water, you can be on the top and look down, and all you see are reflections of clouds you can't see unless you've got a snorkel mask on and you put your face in the water and then you can see. So off of the top of that cruise ship, I knew what they were, and I'm looking and I couldn't see. So
Oh.
that's one reason why it's very easy to hide something underwater. And so someone says, well, we were looking down and we couldn't see anything down. No, you're not. But then also color changes too. You lose red right away. I mean, that's why a lot of our tanks are green, and then my tanks are yellow because that's one of the last colors. But red disappears fairly quickly.
Did not
And
know
then
that.
so,
Interesting.
and then, then I know that there's currents, I know that there's depth, so you have to know the elements and what's a drift dive and what's not. And that's another thing too, you see something in the water was moving this faster, and our limitations,
Yeah.
like how do our submarines go? And so something zips by the screen really quick, the sonar screen, it's not one
Yeah.
of ours. And so, yes, I guess it's a long answer to the question, but
No, you're fine.
if you know water, if you know underwater, and you know the conditions,
Yeah, I don't.
you know
So that was
what
awesome.
what's possible and what is not, and what's probable and what is not.
So what kind of how do you kind of overcome some of those obstacles that you face underwater?
Oh, well, I mean, as far as diving, you have to know your limitations. You have to be experienced. The best thing to do is when you go diving anywhere looking for anything, because I was on Alaska Triangle, and naturally I could have gone by myself, but that would not be bright.
No.
Anywhere you go, I know the lakes around Missouri, but
Mhm.
you go anywhere you haven't been diving before, you contact a local diver and you rent your equipment there. They know, you've got good air, good equipment. They know
Mhm.
the area, they know the limitations, they know where you can get in and out of the water. And that's why I tell a lot of people too that if we're doing a water investigation through MUFON, doing some type of a water investigation, to contact your local fire department. Here, the Water Rescues Fire Department. Uh, and I think the East Coast, it might be police department is their water rescue, because they've got all the equipment, they've got air, they know the area. I've had people say, well, there's things which there are going in and out of the Mississippi River. My son-in-law is a firefighter, teaches water rescue in the Mississippi and the Missouri rivers, and he doesn't even want to go in there and try and. I mean, water rescue is basically a car has gone down into the water, and there's most likely recovery, of the
Mhm.
person that was driving it. And he said it's just the elements are so dangerous that just things that floating underwater, he's been hit in the head, he's
Oh
been hung
gosh.
hung up on nets, fishing nets and garbage and everything else from floodwaters. And so, you have to be very, very, very careful. And this is a firefighter. This is what he does.
Yeah.
So I say, have somebody that says, well, go in the Mississippi River and see if you can look for UFOs. I go,
No.
yeah, no. So I mean that's our limitations are limited, and a lot of times like Clearwater Lake, I don't think there's anything there. And I think a lot of it is these craft will go into the water or hover over the water, and I believe they're gathering something that could be very well gathering hydrogen, maybe to
Oh.
replenish their electromagnetic fields. But I think they're probably harvesting hydrogen. We have a lot of oh gosh, like algae, that type of thing. I don't
Mhm.
know, maybe that's a food source, that type of thing.
That's an interesting
It's
concept.
a good place to hide. I know that some of the reports I was looking, right now I'm getting ready to write another book. Well, I'm almost finished with another one about
Ooh.
people who were abducted and taken underwater. And that's a very hard thing to try and research, because people that are abducted, they'll remember like, oh, I'm seeing something, there's this creature, or they remember being brought back, and so they will do regression therapy, and then they
Mhm.
remember some of what happened to them. Some of them don't. Some of them
Oh.
choose not to have any regression, but no, not very many people remember being taken and brought back, because if they did, if that memory wasn't erased, then
Mhm.
we would know where the underwater bases, the underground bases, we'd know where all that was. So that's the most important memory
Oh.
to erase, is the journey back and forth.
Right.
I have found a few people, but the ones that talk about it, there was one that said it was off of California coast, and said that they have some kind of electromagnetic netting that's camouflage, and so fish, boats, whatever, can't see them. There's
Huh.
another one that says that a mountain underwater kind of oh gosh, it opens up, but they said molecularly, or it basically it changes where like an opening will form and the ship will go in and then it closes back up again.
Oh
So
my
it's
gosh.
some type of there's a word for it.
Base. Like, well, not
Right.
base.
So they're hidden there, or hidden very, very deep. And so or it's a good place too, if you have people, you have beings, they're coming in and out of wormholes in the open sky, people are going to see it. But if
Right.
you go underwater and you open up a wormhole hole, or you go travel through dimension underwater, no one's going to see that.
No.
They
No,
go
they're
into the
not.
water really, really quick and they're gone, or they'll come out and then they're gone. So the water is just and in fact, I think it was 2023, I believe, that the government, when they started releasing all these videos, they decided
Mhm.
in 2023 that they were going to focus on water sightings. And I
Oh
thought,
my gosh.
somebody
Well, and at
finally,
the same time, they started coming out with the, oh yeah, UFOs are real. We just kept them hidden from you.
oh, right, that
Yep.
was in 2017, Jeremy Corbell
Oh
started
yeah.
updating videos. Well, you had the one from the Nimitz, Fleur, and then Go Fast, and
Yeah.
Gimbal from the
That's
Roosevelt. And that was January 21st of if not 2015. The other one was November of 2004. The first one, that was the Tic Tac from
yeah, yeah. And it's
Amanda
amazing though to
Crater.
hear about all that and then be like, but you said all these people were crazy, and now you're coming back and saying, oh well, they're really not crazy. We just wanted you to believe they're crazy. So okay, you want us to trust you?
Oh, now come on. Have
Come
you ever
on.
trusted the government?
No. I
Well, there.
especially stopped trusting the government after I was in the military. So that was like, okay. But talking about the military stuff and talking about the submarines, I know there was a part in your book, and I was trying to find it about one of the submarine. Was it the Black Submarine? Is that what they called it, or where they said that they found little men? Let me see if I can find it.
That was in the Black Sea. They
Yes.
found Black Sea that was at I believe that was 1,300 feet. But another one was I believe in 1982, Lake Baikal in Russia, and
Yeah.
they sent seven of the equivalent of our Navy SEALs. They were training seven divers that went down. It was 165 feet down, which is, that's pretty heavy training down there. You go down 165 feet. I know at a lot of places in a lake here in Missouri, you go down 100 feet. It's dark.
Oh
I
my
can
gosh.
imagine at 165 feet, they all had flashlights, or at least I would if I was
All
down there.
right.
And their training, deep water training, came across four alien beings 10 foot tall. They had just helmets on and some kind of a device to breathe, and then silver suits. They so can you imagine you're scuba diving, you're down, it's dark, you got a flashlight, you shine the light, and all of a sudden there's these 10 foot tall alien beings, three stand kind of hovering in back, one toward the front, what I would assume would be the leader. The first thing they did was back off, and like, oh my God.
Right.
And they slowly went to the surface. Now you're 165 feet deep. You're not going to go right to the surface.
You can't, can
Depending
you?
on how long they were down there, if they had just come down and they were going back up, you're still, I would say, still 30 minutes. I mean, they're still going to have to do safety stops all the way up, because when I was at 145 feet, we came up, and that was in Cozumel. We came up at about 70, and then just swam around for a few minutes, and then came up to 50, and then 25, and then the last 12 minutes was at 15 feet.
Now you
So
have to do that because of the pressure around your body,
right,
right?
right. So you have to pressurize, because you just can't go right on back, right back up.
Oh.
You basically, decompression is the easiest way to describe it, is your blood pretty well boils. So they're
Oh.
coming up in stages, knowing what's underneath them.
Oh my
When they
God.
get in, they tell their commanders, tell the authorities, and they decide to tell them, okay, you're going to go back down now a few days later and take a net and catch one of them. So they went down to the same place, and they're looking around, and sure
Oh.
enough, they come across them, and there's these seven guys, and two of them have a net. So they decide they're going to swim over and throw the net over the one in the front, which is the leader. And as they got to it, the being put its arms straight out, and they all seven went right up to the surface.
Oh my
And
God.
when they got to the surface, three of them died almost immediately. Because they just went straight on up. Three died almost immediately. The other four they took to two decompression chambers. One was broke, and so they stuffed all four of them in one decompression chamber, and three of them died, including the leader of the group, the highest ranked, and only one survived.
Oh
I
my
found this in
God.
several different books, Russian UFO books, and even, in an article, newspaper article. And what they had decided was that they weren't going to do that anymore. I mean,
Right?
these guys, but there's another adjoining lake. I can't remember offhand the name of it, but they decided they weren't going to dive in that lake anymore and train. And I mean, there was a big hearing about it. So we know there's a report there of 10-foot tall beings. There was another one, B. Borovikov, was shark hunting. And I think that was also in the Black Sea, and in Napa. And he also came across some very tall beings that came from underwater, came up, kind of looked at them, and then went back under. So there's several stories of sounds, deep water sounds, and creatures, very tall creatures. Even one from the 1940s I found the gentleman's book, and he was a young boy and had found very large, they were 11, 12 years old, went up swimming and saw a cave underwater, and went inside and found large bones.
Oh my
So
gosh.
Russia has something very large. I mean, most of these are the reports came out pretty much when the Soviet Union broke up. It used to
Yeah.
be the Soviet Union that became Russia.
Mhm. Oh
And
my gosh.
when that happened, there were a lot of papers, a lot of things that were released, a lot of things that came out that shouldn't have. And of course, the Russian UFO investigators jumped on all that, and they got that's how a lot of this was released.
Yeah.
The only thing that I found, I've been reading through and redacting the Stringfield files. And I believe it was in the early 80s. off of the coast of Florida, there was from the 1980s they only said it was a very famous diver back in those days, and an anthropologist were diving off the coast of Florida, and they saw a 7 foot tall being in the water sitting on a rock under while they were diving, and they said
Just
it
sitting on
looked
a rock.
yeah, and it was just sitting on a rock, and they went down to look at it, and they said they didn't have any dive gear or anything. It was just a 7 foot tall being sitting on a rock, and no dive gear. They looked at it, and it kind of started to swim slowly underwater, turned around, looked over its shoulder at them, and then just kept going deeper and disappeared into the depths right off of Florida. So they're down there.
They're down there. They're just hiding very well.
Well, the one was seen from some type, I guess, from a research vessel through the window at 1,300 feet deep, swimming around,
Just enjoying life.
just enjoying life at 1,300 feet.
Oh my gosh. It kind of makes you go into the mermaid kind of
Exactly,
idea. Like, is
exactly,
this where they're
because
getting it from?
well, I wouldn't doubt it, because we we give names to things that don't have a name.
Mm.
Well, like they talk about little trolls. Now we're thinking, okay, they're these little trolls. Were they just little aliens? And I mean, you can start to put all
Mhm.
this. You can go back through the Bible, and there's passages talking about a, a a ball of light in the sky and a beam of light
Yeah.
took somebody up. And there was even a description of a tic tac. In fact, I think I marked it in the book, and it's a really short description, but we know what the tic tac looks like. That's
Mhm.
what Commander Fravor was talking about, but it's Zechariah. Then I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a flying roll. And he said unto me, what seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the beneath thereof 10 cubits. That would be about 15, I think it was 15 by 20 or 30 feet. I think 15 by 30 feet. So they're describing a roll in the sky.
Oh my God.
You could go back and look at some of the they're in the book too, some of them, the very, very old paintings from, I guess, the 15 or, 1500s. And there's a very famous one where there's a painting of like a Madonna in the background. You can see a little bitty UFO, and there's a man pointing at it, and his dog is standing next to him.
Ain't there
You
like
look
hieroglyphics that have UFOs in them too?
you look at the pyramids, and they've gone into some of the pyramids, and there's drawings in there, carvings in there that look like ships from Star Wars.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it, history is there. But you describe something, however, I mean, can you imagine go back in biblical times, and then somebody's got a match and lights it, or like
Right?
it's a match.
What? Fire?
Right, it's a match, and it's so something that we have a name for, and we know what it is. It's described as something different. And I was speaking to a Native American lady at a conference I was speaking at years ago, and she said they're starting to go back now and rethink all their stories about the giant thunderbirds.
Right? Oh, yeah.
And some of what
Interesting.
Native Americans, their stories have been told and you passed on and
Mm,
on, and they're starting to wonder now, now we're getting more of an idea of what these things are. And then back then, I mean, how do you describe something like that?
right.
How do you describe something, 2000 years ago?
It kind of makes you wonder about some of the movies that come out too, like Indiana Jones. Everybody was so upset that one of the Indiana Jones movies, went into like a sci-fi thing because it was talking about aliens and the crystal skull and all this and that. But
There are
his first one was talking about paranormal. So I mean, what do you think these like directors and writers? Where did they come up with it? They got to come up with it somewhere.
they're going back through ancient history. Oh gosh, what was the name of the big box? Oh, I know. Um,
Uh,
but you know that if you opened it up, I mean, there's
Pandora's
radiation.
box? No, not Pandora's box.
No, no.
Um,
One of your listeners will say, we can't believe they didn't remember
right?
it." But uh,
You put us on
the
the spot.
but there are a lot of things in Indiana Jones. It's, history, going back through history, and then we're
Mhm.
looking at things that are maybe in the Bible, and things that now we're thinking, oh, okay, wait a minute, these people opened this box up, and
Mhm.
there was radiation. Of course, there were like ghosts and
Yeah.
stuff. I think that was more made up, but there are in ancient scriptures of places where there is maybe radiation, where there are things that you really just can't explain.
Right. I mean,
You
look
want
at
something else? Okay, what
Chernobyl.
about David and Goliath? Where did
Right? Giant.
Goliath come from?
A giant.
Right. Oh,
So it's like, what's their input on giant? How giant is a giant?
oh, right. I mean, maybe it was just a very tall guy, but how
Or
but then it makes you think about how these kids found these bones in Russia, in this cave that were very, very large. They said the eye socket you could put a fist through. That, I mean, walking, they figured just laying there, the bones had to be at least from a being that was more than 7 foot tall.
yeah, oh my god, that is so crazy.
So
It
this they
is.
have, well, anyway, the I guess the point is, it's why the first book was the alien colonization of Earth's waterways, because I don't believe, if you look up in Webster's dictionary, if they even still have dictionaries anymore, everything's online, but
Right?
the definition of a residence is someone that's been here a couple weeks, or
Mm.
somebody who has, set up household. Well, we refer to these beings from other planets or other dimensions, or coming through time, as being visitors, but they're not visiting. They've been here
They've been
for
here.
centuries and centuries and centuries.
Yeah. And that's going into the triangles that you were talking about earlier. Chapter 4 in your book talks about the mysterious triangles. Now, you were talking about the Alaska Triangle. I had a guest on last year, Mike Ricksecker, who was talking about the Alaska Triangle as well, and the Bermuda Triangle, and all the other triangles that are all over the United States and across the world. Are these connected to a lot of the UFO phenomenon that's out there?
I think they're connected to a lot of things that are mysterious. I'm not really well, um, one of the people that had been abducted and taken underwater talked about Puerto Rico, and they said that the base they had, it was in the 70s, and that they in 1972, and by 76 they were going to build 6 bases around the world. They liked Puerto Rico because of the magnetic fields, it was magnetic in the area, and they used that, I guess, to replenish their ships, magnetic fields. It was easier to leave the Earth's atmosphere. So you've got your the Bermuda triangles, from Bermuda to like Miami to,
Mm,
where I was, like Puerto Rico. I mean, you've got that's pretty much the triangle. There's
mm,
also the Michigan triangle. Most people don't realize that the Michigan triangle, it's from way, northern Michigan. It comes down at either end, but right over Lake Michigan, that Otis Redding, who sang the song "The Dock of the Bay," because
mm.
you never hear much after that. Well, he passed away. His plane was leaving from, I believe it was Ohio. He's headed to Wisconsin, the plane that the band was on, and they were at 20 some hundred feet radioing to come in, and just lost all power, just bee dived down, ended up in a lake, crashing
Oh,
into a lake in Wisconsin. But there's a lot of mysterious things that go on. Oh gosh, the one ship, oh my gosh, there's so many different ships that have, the Edmund Fitzgerald, there was
oh
even a song
yeah.
about it. But now then you go, I went through and researched that, and a lot of it is that they have storms that come up, and then they'll have these rogue tidal waves that take a lot of that down. But there are a lot of ships in Lake Michigan. There's a pyramid in Lake Michigan. There's even a Stonehenge underwater in Lake Michigan, and it's not very deep.
Holy
There's
cow.
people that are researching it, and there's pictures of it online, but they don't want to tell you exactly where, because when you have an archaeology site, especially underwater, you don't want people over there messing.
No.
I mean,
And
I
that's
know.
exactly what everybody would do is go over there and start.
Oh, exactly. Well, Roswell, I've been there.
Hmm.
I researched that for well over 20 years, and I know exactly where the debris field is, and I know where there's a crash field where it ended up a few miles away. That the first site that I worked on in a couple archaeology digs, it was the skip site, but then where it ended up and where the bodies fell out, I've worked on that too. But Don Schmidt is the lead investigator on that, and I would never reveal exactly where it was, because you don't, the
Yeah.
moment, well, we had a sighting here in St. Louis, a light over the top of the arch.
Mm.
This was a few years ago, and it wasn't the light on the arch. It was just this light that was hovering. It was picked up by the casinos on the river. And the more we tried to investigate it, people were going down. There were drones and flying them all over the place.
Ugh.
We were afraid too that the debris field in Roswell, if you start telling people I've picked up this little foils and stuff, they're going to take aluminum foil and plant pieces everywhere just to be funny. And the
Yeah.
last thing you need is, if you want to keep an archaeology site, and in fact, we've got a site here, Mastodon State Park, and they have a little video and they show where they dug up all the bones of the mastodons. No, they didn't. I remember that archaeology site. I know exactly where they dug those bones up, and it
Mhm.
isn't where it
Everybody's
isn't where
saying,
they're saying. They're saying, oh, it's in the park on the other side of the hill, and then they show where they actually dug them up, and it's off of a highway, like 3 miles away.
oh
And
my
they
gosh.
so you do archaeology sites, you have to keep them.
It's
You,
kind of
you
like
know,
with
you,
anything, you have to research and make sure you know what you're looking
oh,
for.
exactly, exactly. So, but I'm not exactly sure how we got off on that, but there's a lot, a lot of things out there that I think scientists know about, and that's one,
Yeah.
maybe one reason too why the government isn't telling us too much about anything, because, maybe they, like Antarctica, I'd love to find out what's going down there.
Right? There's so much going on down there, and they have stuff going there all the time, but nobody knows. Nobody
Nobody
knows.
knows, and I'm thinking they're keeping that more of an archaeology site and a
Yeah.
learning site, and maybe I don't know what else. Then they're going to have floods of people go down there, and
I wouldn't want to go down there. I like cold, but that's too cold. Woo!
I've been diving and snorkeling in Alaska, so
Oh God, no.
yes.
I'd be like, and just become a popsicle in the water.
Now, it really wasn't that bad. It was actually a little bit warmer than the time that my son and I went diving here in Missouri at a lake in Rolla. It was an underwater pumpkin carving contest for Halloween.
Oh my Lord.
And it was snowing at the time. And
Oh my Lord.
not
Oh
light
God.
snow, just
Ah,
light snow, but yeah, we
just
were
light
underwater.
snow. It was just
Yeah,
cold.
yeah, it was a little frigid, but how then you get out, and then you're by the fire.
Oh, right. And then you're trying to thaw out. Oh my goodness. Well, you did
Yeah.
talk about how you were involved with the Roswell 1947 crash investigation. You were involved with it for 25 years. You talked about
Uh-huh.
some of the insights. Well, what insights have emerged in the recent years that have changed the narrative surrounding that event?
Um, I guess it'd be best described by Stanton Friedman. He said it's you're in a race with oh gosh, I guess you're in a race with the with death, with,
Oh,
with
yeah.
uh the witnesses are all dying out. And
So
so
you're trying to get there.
well, you have to try. A lot of them are they'll talk after, they're on their deathbed. And I
Yeah.
know one of them was Walter Hott, that I had met him. He was the information officer. And he had said, well, I never saw, that didn't happen. Well, okay, we figured out it was a weather balloon. And even though they had the museum, he was one of the founders of the museum, he denied it right until the very end. And then he wrote a letter for his daughter and just said, this is what I saw. So they tell on their deathbed.
Oh my God.
A lot of them have been threatened. They're like somebody, and that in the military, you don't want to lose your military benefits
Right.
because you're
Right.
going to tell something that no one's going to believe you anyway. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, let's just say, for instance, you were in the military, you came across a UFO, they said, okay, you're going to lose all your benefits if you tell, you'll be court-martialed, dishonorably dismissed from the military, all your benefits, everything gone, and no one's going to believe you anyway. So what are you going to do? You're going to go, okay, I didn't see anything.
Right.
So this is
Uh,
what's happening in Roswell. A lot of them now, they're telling, okay, well, we had this site and we had this site, and this is where something else, and this was government cover up. And they tell the people at the museum, and they contact Don Schmidt, and
Booty,
he
come
goes
get
out
this
and
dog and put
kind
him
of
outside.
investigates. And we found a kind of a new area, that they were talking
Mm.
about. That was, I think, a year ago, April, we went back out there. I guess
Oh,
what the saying was that it's you're in a race with the Undertaker. I
yeah.
was trying to think of what it
The
was.
Undertaker, yeah.
And then I loved Stanton Friedman. He was terrific. I met him several times. But
Uh,
he used to say that, and then he used to say too that if you find evidence and you really weren't sure what to do with it, you put it in a gray file, because sooner or later that's going to come up again. You're going to say, oh, wait a minute now. Somebody else said that, and there you've got another file with all these odd and end things. I just always like to describe all of this as a puzzle. And if you've ever bought a puzzle and start to put it together, the more pieces you put together, the more you can see what picture the puzzle is.
yeah.
And right now we've got a lot of pieces on the puzzle, but all those really important ones in the middle are still missing. You might have a nose over here, and you know, and that's pretty much what it is. We've been researching this. Oh my gosh, MUFON was founded in 1969.
Oh my
These
gosh.
Stringfield files, Leonard Stringfield, we're going to be talking to him. I'm sorry, he passed away in 94, I believe,
Mm.
talking about his diaries that were kept, and we're going to be talking about that at the MUFON symposium. There's three of us. They're going to reveal some of what was in his diaries, but this is some of it from the 1940s. The things
Wow.
that things that astronauts, there's a lot in there. The astronauts were covering up, and there's astronauts now that are talking, but back then they knew a whole lot more, and they weren't allowed to say anything. And then
Like all
just some
that
of the
part of the Project Blue Book stuff that was.
Oh, right, right. And Leonard Stringfield worked with J. Allen Hynek on some cases. Leonard Stringfield was, I guess, he had a sighting in 1945 on the way to, I believe it was the Missouri, I believe is where they signed the Japanese signed papers, to surrender. And
Mm.
they had three craft that came through the air, and they saw them, three silver disc craft that shook the plane so hard it almost crashed. They got control of it at about 2,500 feet.
Oh
And he always
wow.
thought about that and didn't think anymore until it was June 25th, I believe, of 1947, just before Roswell, when you had Kenneth Arnold saw the
Right.
craft. And then that was all over the news. And then the whole Roswell thing, too, the weekend of 4th of July weekend of 1947. Roswell wasn't the only place. I mean, that's where they had the crash, but there were sightings everywhere, including Catalina Island. They had sightings, but they were across the United States. So there were so many sightings that Leonard Stringfield went that he went on a radio show, and then he was also he was on radio and then in the newspaper, and so many people heard that he just started getting, like, he said, thousands of letters. People were writing this man, and that's when he started his first book, which I think was 1957. And he just, from there on, he became the investigator, was a lead investigator for the government. And so people, all the sheriffs and the local police would contact Leonard and say, this is a report. Somebody said, hey, I don't know what to do with this. He would investigate it and turn it over. And this was like in real time, and turn it over to the military. But he said that he never got any final results. So he was in a way working for the military. He'd get the information from the public.
Oh my gosh, that's
Well, now
crazy.
his diaries are out now of all the things that he found out, and he had code names, and he had a certain way that his informants, that they'd have to contact him. And And it was really interesting of all he went to get all this information. I think the point is that they've been covering this up since the 1940s, and maybe from before then. I believe Hitler was supposed to have come across a craft, and was it 1938, I believe.
I wouldn't doubt it one bit. Not
So I
one
mean,
bit.
and before that, I think people just didn't know what they were looking at ancient time, but at least from the 1930s on, there's been some type of a cover up.
Ugh. Well, how has your journey with MUFON shaped your understanding of all this UFO phenomenon? And kind of like, what kind of advice would you give to those that are interested in joining MUFON?
Um, well, you can, you think you know a lot until you actually, I know I did. I thought, oh, I know all of this and I've read all of this. And then you meet the people who've actually seen things, which I mean, I have after doing this for 25 years.
Mhm.
You go out enough and you're on a site that's an active site. We set up a sky watch, and video cameras and all this equipment. We're kind of like a version of Skinwalker Ranch. We've got a lot of the equipment, only cheaper. They're
Right.
we don't have $100,000 cameras. We've got little cameras, but they're very, very good night vision cameras, and RF meters, and I mean, just a Geiger counter. I've got a very nice Geiger counter, but you go out and actually get to speak to witnesses that have seen something, and you set up a sky watch, and I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of the sightings are International Space Station, Starlink,
Yeah.
Venus, Jupiter, but street lights from between, someone says that these lights come on every night and they're moving around. Well, they're not. They're street dust of dawn that come on, and they're not moving. The trees are moving back and forth, and it makes it look like it's something. So
Yeah.
you get that, but then you get something that's just absolutely incredible that knocks all your cameras out and all your batteries. We always take a Ziploc when we go on site of batteries that aren't in something, because
Yeah.
I've been in Colorado, and every battery, even though my cameras and everything were turned off, all the batteries drained. And the
What?
equipment wasn't even turned on, even including our car battery.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
so that makes it fun. It's like a mystery novel, and
Right.
you get a few cases where you think, well, there's one that we've been working on in Missouri that's not too far from Route 66, and we've been working on it since 2018, and they're still having sightings. And
Wow. Well,
some of the stuff is just phenomenal, that we've got it on videotape, and we just can't explain it.
oh my goodness. How many sightings do you think do you know of that come around like in your area just alone?
It goes in waves. We'll have a month where we may only have 10, 15 sightings, and then we'll have a month like we had in oh, that would have been, let's see, was it October? It was August of 2011, and we had over 100 sightings in 3 days. A lot of them in the Kansas City area. Um,
Wow.
it went on to 2000 into 2012. And then, of course, in 1973, between 73 and 74, 75, I mean, there were the one day, there was a February 21st of 1973. They had over 200 sightings in the Piedmont area, Piedmont, Missouri.
Holy
So
cow.
you can, then sometimes we'll get where there's triangle craft, and then another one where everybody's seeing tic tac, and it's all in one area. So
Mm,
it depends. There's active areas and there's active times, and it's really hard to predict. You just have to be ready. But it's interesting if you have the time, and we're all volunteers.
mm.
So we don't send anybody. It's still like there's an investigation. If somebody calls in, or they go online, MUFON online, and they fill out a form, they've had a sighting. All of those sightings come to me. I'm the state director, and then I assign one of, I think we've got around 15 investigators now in our state, and we assign one to somebody in that area. And if it's something that they think that they can figure out, that it's a star, or whatnot,
Mm.
or a lot of them too, they'll say, I happened to, finally I'm going to tell them this happened in 1982. Well, there's no use in going out to the site. It was 1982.
Right.
But it's interesting if it's something like 1973 in Piedmont, and all this went on, and they're still having sightings in Piedmont.
Hmm.
There's a history, so you go out there and think, oh, there might be something going on again. It's nice to. I don't care how old the sighting is. It just it reaffirms that there was things happening that far back in that area.
Right.
So something we're investigating now, we can find out that 20 years ago there was somebody that saw the same thing.
Right. Ah,
But we all go out in pairs. That no one goes by themselves. It's just not safe. we
right.
we go in pairs, and we meet the people. We do a lot of investigations now on Zoom, so we'll talk to the people on Zoom first, and then we'll go out to their house and set up a sky watch. And
Well, that's
that
good. That's a good way of
and
technology makes it a lot easier nowadays
oh,
too.
it does. And we try and stay, to where I can drive out there and spend the day and then turn around in a reasonable amount of time and get
Yeah.
back home. I'm not going to drive to the other end of the state. We have people in Kansas City area, so I don't have to drive 4 hours from my house. I said, so,
Right.
someone in the Kansas City area takes care of that. And we try and
Good.
stay within an hour and a half. And so
Well,
it's exciting. It's fulfilling. Um, that when you do this enough, and then you think, okay, yeah, there's other people. That's why I like my in-person meetings too, because
mhm.
they come to the in-person meeting, they say, I've seen stuff, and I just didn't want to ever tell anybody. And I go, oh, we've all seen stuff here. You're
Right. You're
you're
not
in good
alone.
company. There's not anybody here that's going to laugh at you, because we've all either seen something or had a family member, and we've got an interest. And that's how a lot of the conferences are. I'm sure with the paranormal too, when you go out on a ghost hunt and then you go to a conference, like when we go to Little Rock,
Yeah.
people are coming up and they're saying, okay, yeah, I saw this. I had a
Right.
gentleman that saw something back when he was in the military and came up and talked to me and said he never knew who to tell. He's kept this for like years.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, it's
Wow.
the thing. So it's just nice to have somebody. You're in the right, I guess, good company, maybe.
Yes, definitely. Because you get a lot of
Comfortable.
them coming out to talk to you, and they're like, I've never said this before, but I've had quite a few come up to me with pictures in their phones, and they're like, look at what this is, and what do you think this is? And I'm like, I love it. I love having that interaction with other people because they know now, maybe I'm not as crazy, because if I am, then these people are crazy too. So I'll hang out with the crazy people.
Well, and to a lot of them, it's just that they'll see something and it just digs at them and digs at them, and they start to
Mm,
think about it. And if you could talk to somebody, that's why it's so nice with the witnesses that call in and say, we've had this sighting, and they can actually say, this is what happened, and
yeah.
I got this, and then we can say, okay, in your area, you'd be surprised, like your neighbor about 4 blocks down saw the same thing. And
Yep. Yep.
it's nice to be able to talk to somebody also.
It
And then
is.
also be the one that that you've helped them out and you've said, okay, this is what I found.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Well, how do you see the future of kind of UFO investigations evolving, especially with like the advancements in technology and research?
Oh goodness. I think AI is going to help a lot. And I'm really leery about it, because you've got this artificial intelligence that the equipment will pick up more,
Mhm.
but then who's controlling it, and can it be manipulated? And so then
Right.
that's something else that you have to think about. But with the technology, I know the camera we've got, there's a lot of us now have a psionics. Um, um, it's a psionics little video camera,
Mhm.
and it picks up. We were just talking about the other night on Zoom. We know it's picked up an airplane that was 100 miles away. So when you're looking through this camera, it's picking up light. There's I guess there's different light spectrums,
Mhm.
and it picked up lights that we couldn't see with our eyes, and then we in turn take flight radar 24. We rule out all the planes, we rule out the stars. That's why it's very important if you're taking a picture of some strange light in the sky, don't zoom in on it. Make sure that you've got surrounding area so we can say, okay, this is stars and
Mm.
these are planets. And then also too, we go to Heavens Above website, and then we know where satellites are, and flight radar 24, we know where the planes are. And then once you get to the point where I don't know what this was, like the one in particular that we videotaped down south from me, I guess it's about an hour south of me.
Mm.
It was a bright light came across the interstate, then came across a high Route 66, basically came right through the trees, came above us, and then turned, and as it went off into the distance, this bright light that we watched come through the trees in a January, trees with no light, no leaves on them, goes off into the air. And as it's moving away, on the left there's a green light, and on the right there's a red light, FAA lights moving away. Except we looked over and we thought, going away from us, the red should be on the left-hand side and the green should be on the right. So whatever it was a bright white light that made its way low through the trees, took air, got to be 800-900 feet altitude, and then turned on for whatever reason, FAA lights. I guess whoever it was thought they would fool people with the red and the green, but they don't realize that the red and green are supposed to be on certain sides. This plane would have, if it was a plane, would have had been going upside down or backward.
Oh my God. Yeah, no,
And
that can't.
and this camera, I mean, got it great. It's in color. I've got the video. And the same thing happened, and it's recorded in Harley Rutledge's book when he was investigating Piedmont. It happened in 1973 from Farmington Airport. And one of the students got a picture of it, and it was a black and white picture, but in the book it says, Professor, it's turned on FAA lights, but the green's on the left side and the red is on the right. They're on the wrong side. And also too, the lights are so close together when we went frame by frame by frame, there's not even room for a fuselage in between. And they mentioned that in the book too. So we picked up something in Missouri that happened to another investigator in 1973, and it's still
Holy
going on.
cow. That is kick-ass. That is so cool.
That's the difference. They had a black and white picture. We've got color night vision video.
Mm. Oh
And
my God. Yeah.
so that's the technology we're talking about, that the technology is so much better now that, I mean, look at your cell phone. Oh my goodness. I
Right.
remember the first cell phones that came out, you didn't even have a camera on them.
Nope. And it
Now,
was black screen with the green.
oh,
And
exactly. And
like
now
DOS.
you've got these cameras, these cell phones that people are picking up all kinds of things with these cameras.
Yeah.
Cameras. They're selling cameras now. You can buy cameras very inexpensive on Amazon and eBay and everywhere else, because nobody's buying cameras anymore. They've got their cell phone.
Yeah. You got a cell phone to take it. But the thing with the cell phone that kind of worries me though is kind of like you were talking about with AI. Because you can take a picture of the moon now with this, and AI corrects it to make it look
There's
like
a
what it's
setting in
supposed to
there.
look like. And it's
There-
like,
Yeah, there's a setting in there. You have to go in and I could send you that over. We have somebody who researched that, and they were taking pictures of a plane going by in the sky, and it was background, and so the cell phone deleted it. And so we're losing a lot of them from that, but there's settings in your camera that you can turn all that off. It's kind of correction,
ooh,
off, and all that stuff. Go into your cell phone in the settings and everything that said, enhance this and turn this off and turn all that stuff off, and you're gonna get better pictures, because it's
good.
not, get rid of all of that. And that was the problem we have. But then again, we're getting a lot more witness pictures have been turned in, because everybody's got a cell phone in their hand, and they can go, oh my gosh, and they put their cell phone video. So the technology works for and against us, basically.
Yeah.
You just have to know how to deal with it, what to
Yeah.
trust, what not.
Well, Debbie, I have kept you 7 minutes over the time.
Oh,
Please let everybody know
No
where they can
problem.
find you and talk to you. And I've got like 20 more questions, but I'll have to bring you back on.
Oh, Absolutely, I'll come back on after next book comes out. And I can tell you a little bit, or what after the MUFON symposium in July, because I can't reveal everything that I'm talking about now because I have to reveal it then,
Oh,
and
that
then there'll
sounds
be
great.
more interesting information. My email address is MUFON MUFON diver DIVER at gmail.com.
Awesome.
And
So
ask me questions there.
ask your questions. She will answer them, I promise you. I have had so many questions for her, and I've talked to her over the years. Very knowledgeable. Thank you so much. And now, what other conventions are you going to be at? Because you said you're going to be at MUFON, but you're also going to be
In Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas. That's always the last weekend just before but before
Halloween.
Halloween.
Nope.
I'm going to be in Phoenix. I think that's May 6th. There's a conference in Phoenix, and oh my goodness. Let's see. May 17th, I'm going to be a speaker in Phoenix at their conference. And think that's I'm not sure. I can't remember anything else. I'll be in a lot of different podcasts, and
Is there a
you'll see.
website that people can go to that can see where you're going to be at?
Oh, sure. I'll make sure Margie where she's still building the website right now.
Oh,
Because she switched from uh, we they're combining states, and so now she's a regional director, and so it's got to cover 7 states instead of Missouri, and she's just expanding, right? So it would, and I'm not even sure it was Missouri MUFON. I think it's MissouriMUFON.com. It used to be .org. So yeah, the best way probably just contact me at MUFONdiver@gmail.com, and then from there, also too, if you want to be on my mailing list, and then I can turn you over to Margie too. She's got a newsletter, and then you can be on that. So if you want to be included in our Missouri, our Midwest, let me put it that way, our Midwest mailing list, you can give me an email, and then I'll send it out to Margie. And then
sweet.
she's got a phenomenal newsletter that's a magazine every month.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it's got all the information on everybody's conferences and sightings and everything that goes on in like within 7 states in the Midwest. And that would be nice.
Amazing. I'll have to get on that list. Well, thank you so much for being on. Don't go anywhere.
Okay, thank you for having me on. I
It was
hope I
awesome.
didn't babble too much.
Oh no, I
There's
love
just
listening
so
to
much
you and the
information.
stories. I know. And that's why I was like, I gotta get you back on because there's more questions.
There's always another, tomorrow there'll be new information.
Yep, new information that you'll have to share again, and that way we can get you back on and keep you coming back on and just get all the stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching today. If you have any questions, like Debbie said, email her. If you have any questions for me, you can go to exploringparanormalperspective.com and leave me a message there. Thank you so much for watching. Stay free, stay safe, always do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And until next time, see you guys later. Bye, y'all.
Switch it on and come along. Haunted houses all night long. Gaming streams and ghostly scenes. Just chatting with the in-betweens. IRL, she's on the case. Finding spirits in each place. Every game she plays with flair. Geeks, paranormal, she's there. Ghosts and games all night. Geeks, paranormal's bright. Just chatting feels so right. Trying to stream, it's quite a sight. From the haunted house she flies, gaining worlds under the skies. Chat and laugh, let's have a blast. Geeks paranormal here at last. Ghosts and games all night. Geeks paranormal's bright. Just chatting feels so right. Trying to stream, it's quite a sight. From the haunted house she flies, gaining worlds under the skies. Chat and laugh, let's have a blast. Geeks paranormal here at at last. Ghosts and games all night. Geeks Paranormal's bright. Just chatting through sunrise. Join the stream, it's quite a sight. In the dark, she finds the light. Streams of fun, she's out of sight. Every ghost and gaming fight. Geeks Paranormal shines so bright. In the dark, she finds a light. Streams of fun, she's out of sight. Every ghost and gaming fight. Geeks Paranormal shines so bright. Ghosts and games all night. Geeks Paranormal's bright. Just chatting through sunrise. Join the stream, it's quite a sight. It's quite a sight.